I'm Ryan from ExtremeTerrain.com, and this is my review and installation of the M.O.R.E, or Mountain Off-Road Enterprises dual battery tray, fitting all 2012 and up JKs that have the newer 3.6 liter engine. Today we're going to talk through the installation of this dual battery tray, which I am going to give a 2 out of 3 wrenches. This does require a good bit of disassembly and some modification to your factory battery tray, so you will have to do a little bit of cutting. A dual battery tray is for those of you who want to be able to run 2 batteries on your JK, and there are a couple of benefits to that. One is that if you are parked at your campsite, you can run a radio, lights, a refrigerator, whatever accessories you would like out of your Jeep without the Jeep running, and know that you're always going to have that second battery that you can use to start the Jeep when it comes time to leave. Now, if you just have a lot of lights on your Jeep or you just have a winch on your Jeep, chances are you don't need a dual battery setup. You could always install one, but it's not going to be a necessity for you. For most of us, even if you have a bunch of lights on and you are using your winch, the alternator is going to be able to keep up with that power draw for the short period of time that you would actually be winching. If you are somebody who does a lot of really long, hard pulls with your winch, and you have your Jeep running, you could always add a larger alternator to keep up with that power demand. And if you do a lot of winching without your Jeep running, that would be a situation where I would recommend a dual battery setup, because then you could winch off of the one battery. If that battery does die, you know you have that second one in order to fire up the Jeep. Something else to consider with a dual battery setup like this: if you do plan on running 2 batteries that are wired in parallel and they are the same battery, you can pretty much just bolt them in and go. Nothing really special needs to happen. However, if you're going to be running 2 separate types of batteries, like a starter battery and a deep cycle battery, then there are a couple of additional electronic components that you're going to need to ensure that the batteries aren't constantly charging and drawing off of each other, which is really counterproductive. So in that case, running dual batteries would not just be a bolt-in setup for you. The battery tray itself is something that will attach to the Jeep pretty easily, even though you do have to do some modification to your factory battery tray. However, other than that, this is a really well-built piece that does fit in the Jeep very, very well. This is a really well-built battery tray, especially for the price. We've come to expect some really high-quality products from Mountain Off-Road Enterprises, and this is just another one in the long line. As I said, the installation might be a little bit more complicated than you might initially think. However, once you get this part installed, it is a very high quality piece that is very, very well built. In fact, this does not require any modification to your factory airbox or running an aftermarket airbox like some of the other dual battery trays do. And M.O.R.E has upgraded the tie down to this solid steel tie down as opposed to a fabric tie down. So in the event of a rollover or some really hardcore wheeling where you're bouncing over rocks, your batteries are going to stay in place without any problems. As far as the install, I am giving this a 2 out of 3 wrenches because there is some disassembly and some modification to that factory battery tray that you're going to have to do in order to get this installed. The first step is to remove your airbox. Then you'll also have to remove some of the wiring harnesses that are clipped in the way, and finally remove your factory battery tray. From there, you'll follow the instructions to trim that battery tray. You'll be cutting off the front section of it that is also used as the airbox mount. Then you can mount your new battery tray, that front section of the factory battery tray, and all of your wiring harnesses back into place. Aside from cutting the factory battery tray, you're not going to have to modify anything else in the engine bay of your Jeep. You're not going to have to drill any additional holes. This is going to bolt in other than modifying that factory battery tray. As far as time, I would probably give yourself around 2 hours to get this installed, and tools, you'll need some traditional hand tools, but you're also going to need something to cut the plastic factory tray. At right around $150, I think that this is really fairly priced for what you get. I think it's really solid, it's really well built. Once it's installed, it looks like it came from the factory, and overall it's just a really, really nice piece. However, it is important to remember that running a dual battery setup is not as simple as just purchasing this $150 tray and installing it. Aside from, of course, purchasing a second battery, you are also going to need some additional electronics and some additional wiring to get everything working properly, especially if you're running two different types of batteries. So just something to keep in mind when you're budgeting for this mod. So if you're somebody who takes your Jeep camping, wants to be able to turn it off, not be running the engine, but be running accessories like lights or refrigerators or really any other accessory that draws power, and you want to make sure that you always have a battery ready to start the Jeep the next day, this is a great option. Or if you're somebody who does a lot of really long, hard winch pulls on the trail with the Jeep turned off, again, this is going to ensure that you always have enough battery power to get the Jeep started and get moving again. However, it's important to remember that the battery tray is only a small part of your dual battery setup. There are some additional components that you're going to need to make everything work. So that's my review of the M.O.R.E dual battery tray fitting all 2012 and up JKs that you can find right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.